Nintendo Directs are kind of like Christmas mornings to me. You love them, I love them. It's always fun to learn about new games coming to the Nintendo Switch, whether they're games that will be coming out in the near future or the extended future. You get a look at new games you didn't know about, all sorts of fun stuff. Now, the last Nintendo Direct wasn't exactly a huge banger for a lot of people, but for me personally, I did enjoy what I saw. But many people were expecting Nintendo to do a big Nintendo Direct in the month of June. Well, it just sort of made sense. They've done one every June, and with the timeline of things going on with Nintendo, it just looked like it was going to be a very high probability. And it looks like Nintendo was doing a Nintendo Direct in the month of June. Yes, I said was. Now it's being reported that Nintendo is not doing a Nintendo Direct in the month of June. The June Direct has been canceled, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about with this. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on with this Nintendo Direct in the month of June and why it looks like it's been canceled. So this report about the Nintendo Direct in the month of June being canceled is coming to us from VentureBeat and Jeff Grubb. Now, if Jeff Grubb's name sounds familiar, it should. Now, Jeff was someone that was basically a pariah for the March Nintendo Direct. He said that a Nintendo Direct was coming out in the month of March, and then it was never announced. So a lot of people were sort of writing him off, but I always thought he was absolutely correct. From what I had heard, we were getting a Nintendo Direct in the month of March, and then of course a stealth Nintendo Direct ended up dropping in March. So to say that Jeff's track record is good is a bit of an understatement. The man obviously knows about what he is talking about. Now, according to Jeff, Nintendo has been telling their partners that although they were going to be doing a Nintendo Direct in the month of June, now they have decided against it due to the real world circumstances that are obviously happening, because a lot of things are obviously changing. It's an ever-growing thing. It's something that you have to sort of read and react to. So now it seems like Nintendo is canceling their June Nintendo Direct. Now, let me be clear about one thing. There seems to be some sort of misconception. I don't necessarily need Nintendo Directs. For me personally, I don't care how the information gets out there about new and upcoming video games. As long as Nintendo does something, they could simply release a trailer. They could do a press release for these games. I don't really care. As long as the information about the games gets out there, I'm very happy. But with that being said, I still think June is a very important month for the world of video games, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why that we're going to talk about in this video. Now, looking at Nintendo's 2020 lineup, I mean, there really hasn't been all that much stuff to talk about when it comes to first-party games. We, of course, got Tokyo Mirage Sessions coming to the Nintendo Switch. That happened in January. That was essentially just a Wii U port of a game that, you know, not a lot of people played on the Wii U. Fans of the game seem to enjoy it. It seems to be selling pretty decently, but still, it wasn't anything really new or exciting. Then of course we got Animal Crossing New Horizons, which has been crushing sales records. It's done very well, like I expected it to. And then Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is of course coming out in the month of May, and Clubhouse Games in June. Now, the last Nintendo Direct for me was good because honestly, I just have 3 real tick marks when it comes to Nintendo Directs. As long as 3 things happen during these Directs, I'm a happy camper. And those 3 things are as follows. I want to learn about release dates of games that we already knew about, which we learned about with games like Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I wanted to learn about new games, and we learned about a whole bunch of new third-party games coming to the Nintendo Switch, and I wanted stealth drops, and of course we got a stealth drop or 2 during that. However, there was one glaring omission outside of Clubhouse Games. No new first-party titles were announced. The whole banger, the end of the presentation, obviously ended on Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC, which sort of left a flat taste in a lot of people's mouth. People were saying, well, what comes out after Xenoblade and Clubhouse Games? Obviously, these games are coming out in May and June. What is there beyond that? And then of course people said, well, there's going to be a June Nintendo Direct, so I guess it sort of makes sense for Nintendo to talk about things. But maybe the writing was on the wall with this, because there's actually been something very interesting that happened. Deadly Premonition 2 was of course a game that many people expected to come out in 2020, and we actually talked about it twice this week already on the channel. Now, on April 25th, we were told that more information on the game was coming. So I said that I expected something like a gameplay trailer or maybe some new features that were going to be added into the game. It didn't really make sense to me to sort of talk about a release date because, well, that seemed more in line with something that we would get with a Nintendo Direct. But we actually did get a release date for the game of July 10th. Now, I thought that was strange, like I said, because it would have made for a good Nintendo Direct announcement, as this game is coming out in the month of July. But maybe Nintendo wanted this game to have a little bit more information out there. Maybe Nintendo wanted people to know about the release date of this game for more than just a month, because obviously if they do something in the month of June and then release the game in the month of July, there's only like a month to sort of get ready for it. But still, it was really completely out of left field for me. But maybe it does make sense now. I've actually talked to some friends about this article from VentureBeat, and they thought, well, maybe something will happen in the month of May for a Nintendo Direct. But Deadly Premonition 2 would have been a perfect May announcement. And according to the VentureBeat article, it looks like a Nintendo Direct won't happen until late summer at the earliest. So I'm sort of losing faith in any sort of big announcements in the month of May if Nintendo is not doing anything in the month of June, and it looks like everything has just been sort of pushed back. Now, obviously, real-world situations have caused many issues for video games and video game companies and even conventions and things like that. But a pre-recorded event to me sounds like the perfect adaptation to this, and really, that's what many companies are doing. Of course, E3 is canceled, but IGN is already lining up a ton of digital events, and many companies like Ubisoft have already said they're going to do something in the month of June anyways via digital. So Nintendo is pretty much the king of pre-recorded presentations, so it seems like this would be the perfect opportunity for them to shine. Working them home is sort of a hot topic though. Obviously, you don't have the sort of manpower and resources that you have working at home via working in a conventional office, but I personally know people in large third-party companies and even large independent companies that are making trailers from home currently and don't really seem to have too much of a problem doing it. And since Nintendo is this pretty large company, I would think that they would have no sort of problem adapting to this. Now, one of the things that is talked about in the article is that America and Japan do have different things when it comes to cultural differences. Japan is sort of against the work from home mentality, and I totally get that. I totally respect, cultural differences and things like that. You don't want a situation which was like mid-90s Sega, where Sega of America and Sega of Japan were on two completely different pages, absolutely hated each other, wouldn't even work together on things, and it just really caused for a terrible situation for Sega. But in the same breath, you do have to sort of adapt to keep things going and keep the momentum going in these real world situations that are constantly changing and constantly evolving, especially considering the fact that other companies are doing a pretty decent job of adapting to these things. Now, the biggest thing though for me has to be the fact that May and June, Sony and Microsoft are going to be talking about their new consoles, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. There's going to be things like system reveals, price reveals, game reveals, all that good and fun stuff that everyone is going to be talking about, because obviously this is a huge deal. The next generation is nearly here. Both of these systems are still in line to be coming out in holiday 2020. And then there's Nintendo, who's just kind of there, just kind of hanging out, sort of treading water as to what they're doing this year. And really, I just think it's a really bad look. Look, 2020 should have been a dominant year for Nintendo. You have the PS4 and the Xbox One pretty much phasing out. They're on their last legs when it comes to getting things like big games. So Nintendo should have had all of these big games ready for 2020 to sort of stomp out the competition. You need something to counteract things like new systems, and I really feel like Nintendo should have had a lot of momentum from spring and early summer going into 2020, but you've pretty much just seen the opposite of that. Plus, we still, at the end of the day, don't know about Nintendo's 2020. Beyond things like Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which comes out in May, beyond things like Clubhouse Games, which comes out in June, and Deadly Premonition 2, which is a July release, you don't know anything else. It seems like the plan is still to do all of those Mario games that we talked about. Basically, new versions of Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, Super Mario Galaxy, and Super Mario 3D World on the Nintendo Switch, which I think is great. It's obviously celebrating Mario's 35th anniversary, and it's going to make a lot of people very happy. But when are you going to talk about this? Are these remasters and potential remakes of these games simply going to be enough? It looks like Breath of the Wild 2 isn't going to be a 2020 release date anymore. It's going to be a 2021 game, which is fine. I totally understand that. But what do you have in place of games like Breath of the Wild 2 for 2020? What do you have to sort of counteract the hype going on around around the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X this holiday season. That's just sort of up in the air. Are these Mario games going to be the big holiday games? And if so, are you going to have anything in between those games, such as the late summer to fall months, to have for the Nintendo Switch? It's definitely a very crazy situation, and if this does end up becoming true, if Nintendo doesn't do a Nintendo Direct in the month of June, I really just don't know what Nintendo is going to do this year. It's just been a very bizarre situation. Like I have said a million times, obviously real world situations have, sort of impacted the video game industry in an absolutely huge way. It's something that is constantly changing, constantly evolving, and companies are having to adapt to this. But when you look at it, having to do things digitally, having to do these pre-recorded presentations, this seems right up Nintendo's alley. So why was Nintendo not sort of thinking about this in the future? Why were they not thinking about what they're going to do if things continually get worse and you're not allowed to do things like events and things like this? And when was Nintendo going to talk about the 2020 games? It's obviously a very crazy situation right now, but as it stands, it looks like there is going to be no Nintendo Direct in the month of June, and maybe late summer you'll get a Nintendo Direct, but everything is definitely up in the air right now. I will have a link to the original article in the description box down below from VentureBeat if you want to head over there and read it, but really this is just an absolutely crazy situation to me. So I want to know your thoughts about this in the comments section down below. Obviously this is huge news. I actually planned on taking today off because it's just sort of cold and rainy and I just wanted to relax a little bit, but when I heard this I was like, wow, we've definitely got to talk about this. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments section down below, and as always guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Be sure to check out all the other videos on the channel. I upload pretty much every day, and as always I will catch you guys on the next one. Later.